reformed thinking. Welcome back. We are here for another deep dive, and today we have a topic that I think is going to catch a lot of people off guard.
It's one of those words everyone thinks they know.
Exactly. We're taking a single heavyweight theological term, one that carries a massive amount of baggage in the modern mind, and we are going to try and strip away some of those translation layers.
Right.
Our goal is to figure out what this word actually communicated to the ancient Israelites, before centuries of history piled on top of it.
It's a word that sits at the very base of biblical faith, yet it's, I think, often the most misunderstood.
The word is Torah.
Torah.
And I know what you're thinking. I know what I used to think. You hear Torah and your mind immediately goes to law. Rules, regulations, do's and don'ts. Maybe you picture a police officer standing there with a ticket book.
That is the standard reaction, and honestly, it is a significant oversimplification.
An oversimplification.
A huge one. If you only hear law when you read Torah, you are missing the heart of the concept. You're missing the relational aspect of it.
So we're going to fix that today. We're going to look at the roadmap of this word. We'll start with the gritty etymological roots, like where does the word actually come from?
Yeah, the building blocks.
Then we'll trace how it was used in the home, then in the temple by the priests, then how the prophets expanded the concept, and finally how it became the written canon we know today.
It's a movement from a verb, an action to a noun, to a fixed reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start at the very bottom, the root word. My notes here say the root verb is er.
That is correct. So the Hebrew noun Torah is derived from the verbal root year, specifically in what's called the hiphil form.
Okay.
Now, there's actually a bit of a scholarly scuffle regarding where this root comes from.
A scholarly scuffle. I like that.
A polite one, but a debate nonetheless. There's a minority view, famously held by a scholar named Wellhausen. He wanted to connect year to the idea of casting lots.
Casting lots, so like throwing dice or stones to get a decision.
Exactly. Divination.
So God's will is a roll of the dice.
Well, the idea was that year meant to throw or to shoot. So the original Torah was the result of a cast lot, a decision revealed through chance, or, divinely guided chance.
But I take it that's not the view we're going with today.
No, it's largely been rejected. The majority view, supported by heavyweights like Gesenius and Usborne, looks at the context of how the word is actually used.
Okay.
And they argue it connects to a physical gesture, specifically extending the hand or pointing the finger.
Okay, I want you, the listener, to visualize this. This isn't a judge banging a gavel. It's not a cop writing a ticket.
No.
This is a guide.
Correct. Imagine a teacher or a guide standing at a fork in the road. They stretch out their hand and point a finger toward the correct path. That is the root image of Torah.
So it's about pointing out the route.
Yes.
That changes the emotional tone of the word entirely. Law feels restrictive. It feels like a fence. Pointing the way feels helpful. It feels necessary.
It does. And we have support for this from cognate languages. In Akkadian, for instance, there's a word, têrtu.
Têrtu.
It means directive or instruction. Now, it can refer to omens or signs, but the core meaning is receiving direction on how to proceed.
So the primary definition we're working with isn't rule, but instruction or direction.
Yes. The translation law, which comes from the Greek word nomos in the Septuagint, that came much later. And while Torah certainly contains laws, the Hebrew idea is so much broader. It is guidance.
So when we say God gives Torah, we're not just saying he's legislating from a distance.
That's not all.
We're saying he's pointing out the way to walk.
He is the guide who extends his hand to show the path of life.
That's a great starting point.
Yeah.
Now, I want to move to something that really surprised me in the research. When I think of Torah, I, like most people, think of Moses, Mount Sinai, the Ten Commandments.
With big public stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But the sources show that Torah appears frequently in a completely different context, the book of Proverbs.
It does. And this is what we call the wisdom context. If you look at Proverbs, Torah is used in a very secular, or perhaps we should say a very domestic sense.
Domestic is the right word. We're not in the temple here. We're in the living room or the kitchen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Proverbs 4.1 says, "Hear, O sons, a father's instruction, and be attentive that you may gain insight." That word for instruction is Torah.
So a dad telling his kids how to behave, how to manage their money, how to stay out of trouble, he's giving them Torah.
Yes. And it gets even more interesting. Proverbs 1.8 and Proverbs 6.20 explicitly mention the Torah of your mother.
The Torah of your mother. That's fascinating. We usually associate the law with a patriarchal priesthood or a figure like Moses, but here the mother is a source of Torah.
It shows that Torah, in its root sense, is relational instruction. It's the advice and guidance passed down from parent to child. It's not legal code in the state sense. It's life teaching.
And the sources mentioned this type of Torah is associated with light and life.
Proverbs 6.23 says, "For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching, the Torah, is a light."
There it is again.
Just like the etymology of pointing the way, here, the Torah illuminates the path so you don't stumble in the dark.
And it's oral, right? This isn't a mother handing her child a scroll and saying, read chapter 3.
Correct. In the wisdom context, Torah is oral instruction. It's the voice of the teacher, the hakam, the wise one, or the voice of the parent. It represents human authority and wisdom passed down generationally.
So before it was capitalized, the Torah, referring to the Bible, it was lowercase Torah, just good advice on how to live well.
It's instruction for life. And that human element is a crucial building block. God eventually uses this language to describe his relationship with Israel, but the concept is rooted in that intimate face-to-face guidance.
I love that. It makes it feel much less sterile. But we do have to talk about the institutional side of things. The outline moves us from the home to the temple. Section 3 is the priestly Torah.
Right. This is where the usage starts to shift toward what we might recognize as religious law. In the Old Testament, the priest had a very specific job description.
I thought their job was mostly, like, sacrificing animals.
That was the ritual part, certainly.
Yeah.
But their intellectual duty was to handle Torah. Deuteronomy 33.10 says of the Levites, "They teach Jacob your rules and Israel your Torah."
So the priest was a teacher, an instructor.
He was the custodian of distinct knowledge. You see it in Jeremiah
Yeah.
18.18. The people say, "For the Torah shall not perish from the priest." It was their trademark.
So if you wanted to know what God wanted in a specific situation, you didn't go to a library, you went to a priest.
Exactly. The sources mention Haggai 2.1, where it says, "Ask the priests for a ruling."
Okay.
And the Hebrew there is, "Ask the priests for a Torah." In this context, Torah is not a whole book. It's a specific ruling on a specific issue.
What kind of issues are we talking about here? Everyday stuff.
Usually it was about distinctions. The priest's job at its core was to distinguish between the holy and the common, the clean and the unclean.
So things like, can I eat this? Or I have this weird skin rash, am I allowed to go into the temple?
Those are the specific examples Leviticus uses. We see these little phrases all over the place. The Torah of the burnt offering, or the Torah of leprosy, or the really strange Torah of the jealousy ordeal.
So these were individual packets of instruction, like little instruction manuals for specific situations.
Yes, individual Torah, that's the plural. Over time, these individual rulings, they aggregated. They sort of clumped together to form a body of professional knowledge, often called da'at.
It sounds a lot like case law. You build up enough specific rulings, and eventually you have a whole system.
That's a very fair comparison. But the sources highlight a crisis here. Because the priests were the gatekeepers of this instruction, when they failed, the whole system collapsed.
I see Zephaniah 3.4 in the notes. Her priests do violence to the Torah. That's a strong phrase. How do you do violence to instruction?
By twisting it for your own gain, or, as Ezekiel says, by failing to teach the difference between the clean and the unclean. If the person pointing the finger, the guide, is pointing in the wrong direction, or just refuses to point at all,
Then the people are lost.
they're lost.
That links back to the pointing metaphor perfectly. A corrupt priest is a broken compass.
Exactly. And that failure of the priesthood really paves the way for the prophets to step in and widen the definition of Torah even further.
Which brings us to section 4, the prophetic expansion. This is where I feel like the word gets much, much bigger.
It really does. The prophets, you're thinking Isaiah, Hosea, Jeremiah, they start using Torah to mean something much larger than just how to perform a sacrifice or is this meat clean?
So how does it change? What do they do with it?
It becomes, for them, the entire disclosure of Yahweh's will. It stops being just about ritual details and starts being about the moral and spiritual direction of the entire nation.
There's that famous passage in Isaiah chapter 1.
Isaiah 1.10, it's a powerhouse. He says, "Hear the word of the Lord, you rulers of Sodom. Give ear to the teaching, the Torah of our God, you people of Gomorrah."
And then he goes on to just blast them for their empty sacrifices, right?
Right.
He says God is sick of them.
Yes. And that's the beautiful irony. He uses the word Torah, which the priests use for ritual rules, to introduce a prophetic oracle that actually critiques empty rituals.
So he's redefining it in real time.
He is. He's saying the true Torah of God is not just about the blood of bulls. It's about justice and righteousness and caring for the orphan and the widow.
So Torah is becoming synonymous with the word of the Lord.
Correct. The two terms, Torah and dabar, which means word, they're often used in parallel in prophetic literature. It shows that this instruction is direct revelation from God's heart, and it covers all of life.
There's a really heavy verse in Hosea that I think resonates with a lot of people today, Hosea 4.6.
My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Because you have rejected knowledge, I reject you, since you have forgotten the Torah of your God.
It's terrifying.
It is. It implies that forgetting the Torah, forgetting the direction God has given, leads to actual destruction. It's not just breaking a rule and getting a penalty, it's losing your survival guide.
It's losing your connection to reality. If you reject the instruction of the Creator, you are trying to live against the grain of the universe He made. It can't work.
Now, we have to talk about Jeremiah 31. As Reformed thinkers, this is a massive text for us, the New Covenant.
It is the pivot point of redemptive history. Jeremiah is looking at a people who have the Torah on stone tablets or in scrolls, but they keep disobeying it.
The external guidance isn't working?
The external pointing finger was not enough to change their hearts. The problem was internal.
So what's the promise? What's the fix?
Jeremiah 31.33. I will put my law, my Torah within them, and I will write it on their hearts.
I love that he doesn't say, I'll give them a new, easier law, or I'll just get rid of the law altogether.
No. The content of the Torah, God's righteous direction, that remains the same. What changes is the location.
The location.
It moves from external stone tablets to internal reality. It moves from a finger pointing out there to an impulse guiding you from in here.
That is the work of the Holy Spirit.
It is. It is the internalization of God's will. The guide is no longer just shouting for the mountaintop. He is resident within the believer.
And the prophets also saw this going global, right? It wasn't just for Israel.
Oh, absolutely. Isaiah 2 and Micah 4 both have this incredible vision that Torah shall go forth from Zion. It envisions the nations of the world coming to Jerusalem, not as conquerors, but as students. They come to get this arbitration, this divine direction, so they can beat their swords into plowshares.
So Torah becomes the standard for global peace, the ultimate instruction manual for humanity.
That's the vision.
That is a huge vision. So we've gone from a mother teaching her son to a priest checking for leprosy to a prophet declaring the cosmic will of God. But we still need to talk about how it became a book.
Right. Section 5, Deuteronomic unity. This is where the Torah becomes the Bible, essentially, or at least the beginning of it.
The outline says that Deuteronomy changes the game.
Deuteronomy is central. It's a game changer. In Deuteronomy, the word Torah is usually singular, and it refers to the entire covenant code that Moses is preaching. It's not just scattered rulings anymore.
And this is where we start seeing phrases like this Torah or the book of the Torah.
Sefer HaTorah. This is the moment of what some scholars call totalization.
Totalization.
It's no longer just oral tradition or ad hoc priestly decisions. It is a fixed, written body of God's will that must be obeyed, read, and copied.
Speaking of copying, there's that incredible rule for the king.
Deuteronomy 17.18. The king is required to write for himself a copy of this Torah in a book.
That's fascinating. The king isn't above the law. He has to literally sit down and hand copy it himself.
It was to keep him humble. The text says he had to do it so his heart would not be lifted up above his brothers. Even the highest human authority must submit to the direction of Yahweh.
And he had to read it all the days of his life.
Right. It was meant to shape him constantly.
This shift to a written book leads to some really dramatic moments in Israel's history. I'm thinking of Josiah.
Oh, 2 Kings 22. It's an amazing story. The temple has fallen into disrepair. They're doing renovations, and the high priest Hilkiah finds the book of the law in the house of the Lord.
It had been lost. I mean, can you imagine that? The written direction of God was just gathering dust in a closet somewhere.
And when it's read to King Josiah, he tears his clothes. He realizes how far off the path, how far off the Torah the nation has drifted for generations.
So the written text became the catalyst for a massive national reform.
It did. It acted as an objective standard that judged the king and the people.
Then later you get to Ezra and Nehemiah, and it seems like the book is the absolute center of everything.
By the time of Ezra, after the exile, the community is rebuilding itself around this text. Ezra is described as a scribe of the law of the God of heaven. And then you have that beautiful scene in Nehemiah chapter 8. The people gather at the water gate, and Ezra brings out the Sefer Torah Moshe, the book of the law of Moses.
And he reads it from early morning until midday for hours.
And the people stood up out of respect. It also mentions that the Levites went among the people and helped them understand the reading. They gave the sense so that the people understood.
Which sounds a lot like the birth of expository preaching, in a way.
It is, reading the text and explaining the instruction.
And by this point, when they say Torah, what are they referring to?
At this point, it's pretty clear it refers to the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis through Deuteronomy. The canon is solidifying.
So we have the book, it's written down, it's authoritative, but does that make it dry? Does it just become a list of rules again, just in a book this time?
That is the danger, isn't it? But that brings us to the Psalms. And the answer the Psalms gives is a resounding no.
Section 6, the Psalms delight and piety. This is the emotional response to the Torah.
Right. If you read Psalm 1 or Psalm 19 or that giant, Psalm 119, you do not find people groaning under a heavy burden.
No.
You find delight, you find joy.
Psalm 19 is one of my favorites. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. That doesn't sound like a burden.
Or, more to be desired are they than gold. Sweeter also than honey and drippings of the honeycomb.
Honey. That is not how most people describe a rule book.
Because they're not seeing it as a rule book. They're seeing it as the wisdom of God. The blessed man of Psalm 1, his delight is in the Torah of the Lord, and on it he meditates day and night.
Why? Why would he do that?
Because he wants to be like a tree planted by streams of water. He knows that's where life is.
So it goes right back to that wisdom context we started with. It's the instruction for life.
That's right. The psalmist knows that without this Torah, he is stumbling in the dark. That is why Psalm 119 says so famously, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path."
Wow. We are right back to the etymology, the pointing finger, the light showing the way.
It all connects. The pious Israelite loved the Torah because it was the visible evidence of God's grace. God did not leave them guessing in the dark. He showed them how to live.
That's a really critical theological point, especially for us as Reformed thinkers. We often draw a sharp line between law and grace. But here, the giving of the law is an act of grace.
Absolutely. The fact that God speaks, that he directs, is an act of love. He could have left us in silence. That would be the opposite of grace.
Okay, before we wrap up, there's one odd little nugget in the sources. Section 7 calls it the Torah of man.
Ah, yes. 10 and Samuel 7:4 one time. This is in David's prayer after God promises him an eternal dynasty. The Hebrew is really tricky. David asks, is this the Torah of mankind?
What does that even mean? The law of mankind?
It's very difficult to translate. Some think it means, is this the customary way you treat humans? Others suggest it means, is this the charter for humanity, or is this the lot of a man embarked on a high career?
Or maybe, connecting to what we've said, is this the instruction for humanity? A pattern for how to live?
It's possible. It implies that God's dealing with David is a pattern or a direction for how he interacts with people. It just shows that the word Torah has a real flexibility to it. It's about the manner or custom or pattern of things.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all of this. We've covered a lot of ground, from a verb to a book.
We've seen the word evolve, or maybe expand is the better word.
It starts with the root year, that visual of the finger pointing the way.
Then it's the mother and father at the breakfast table, giving wisdom for how to live a good life.
Then it's the priest in the temple, making these crucial distinctions between clean and unclean, holy and common.
Then the prophet steps up, declaring the total moral will of Yahweh and promising it will one day be written on the heart.
Then the scribe, in the post-exilic period, holding the written book of the covenant as the center of the community.
And finally, the believer, the individual in the Psalms, delighting in that book as their life and their light.
But through all these phases, is there a consistent thread, a core idea that holds it all together?
I think the consistency is that it's always Torah Yahweh. It is the gracious instruction of God to his people. Whether it's oral or written, domestic or priestly, it is God saying, this is the way. Walk in it.
And for us today as Christians, we still need that direction. We still need that pointing finger.
We do. And as Christians, we believe that the Word became flesh. Jesus is the ultimate disclosure of God's will. He is, in a very real sense, the living Torah.
That is where it gets really interesting. But we are running close to our time. I want to leave you, the listener, with the final provocative thought from the outline.
It comes from the book of Lamentations, chapter 2, verse 9. This is a book written after the total destruction of Jerusalem. The temple is gone. The city is burned to the ground.
The lowest point.
The absolute lowest. And the verse says, her king and princes are among the nations. The law, the Torah, is no more.
The Torah is no more.
Just think about the implication of that. For the writer of Lamentations, the loss of Torah is equated with total desolation. It is the silence of God.
Without that pointing finger.
we are just lost in the dark. It's a terrifying thought. And it should make us appreciate the fact that we have the book. We have the instruction. We have the guidance.
We are not left to guess.
No, the light is shining.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the vocabulary of faith. It really changes how you read the Bible when you realize law means guidance.
It changes everything.
Informed thinking.